What is going on, guys? Eternal Wind back, and today we're going to go ahead and cover mid-game builds and abilities for Final Fantasy XVI. Unfortunately, this is the second go-around at recording this video because my dumbass forgot to unmute my mic the first go-around. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get right into it. Again, as far as the gear is concerned, you just want to equip the best stuff you have for attack and defense, and then the accessories for me are not going to change as far as the Berserker Ring. Like I said, once I unlocked this, I pretty much left it on permanently. But you just want to equip stuff that is going to tailor to your playstyle and raise your attributes in the direction that you want to go. But the Berserker Ring is highly recommended for all the amazing stuff that it can give you. Now, as far as the icons are concerned, this is where we're going to go ahead and start switching stuff up. I'm going to quote-unquote say mid-game is up to Bahamut. So we've got two new icons, two more since the last video for the beginner builds, and that's going to be Titan and Bahamut. And I think both are extremely good. Titan, again, tailor this build to your playstyle, but I really like parries and counters. If you guys have followed my Ghost of Tsushima content, you'll know that the parry samurai or the Sadugami samurai is like one of my all-time favorites. So as soon as I saw that this game had some kind of block and counter or parry and counter system, I just had to go for it. But if you don't find Titan, being as useful to you in your playstyle, switch it out. But I go ahead and keep Garuda here as the first icon. Deadly Embrace is just too good to pass up. Being able to just snatch aerial enemies out of the sky and bring them to you to just decimate them, and then obviously it works tremendously well against enemies with a stagger bar. Being able to launch yourself up in the air to get away from chaos going on down on the ground, and then being able to do it up to 4 times before you start to descend to where you can drop with a down thrust or a helm splitter, if you will, for maximum damage, and then to be able to drop them to their knees once they've reached 50% to set up your combos. It's just really, really nice. Again, Titan's block, Titanic block, whatever you want to call it. God damn the skill. I actually like the ability Raging Fists way more. But the only problem with that is obviously it has a cooldown where Titanic Block does not. But there are pros and cons for both. So the pros for Titanic Block are going to be the fact that you can pretty much block just about anything except for like super hard hitting abilities. There are going to be some enemies and bosses that if you do not precision block will crush your block and knock you out of it. But really the reason you want to use this is for the precision block, not just this regularly block. And that's because of the counter. And what's sweet about Titanic Block is the fact that you can block something, start to counter, and while one of the cons is the fact that Titanic Block does not slow down time, you can precision block again even while you're countering with Titanic Block. So if there are like 2 attacks that come back to back, while it won't freeze time, you'll be able to block, counter, hit 1 or 2 of the 3 hits, and then go into another precision block to just rinse and repeat. It does an okay amount of stagger damage. It's not great. I think it just looks badass. It's extra damage and it saves you. But again, tailor this to your playstyle. Wings of Light, this is a very situational skill. I found myself using this more against hunts and bosses than regular enemies, but this skill is amazing. Once you fully charge this to level 4, my god, this thing lasts like 30 seconds and it does a really nice amount of damage. If you unleash this before a staggered phase on a tougher enemy or a boss, you can skyrocket your damage. I think this iconic feat is absolutely amazing, but again, I found it very situational. So if it's something you would like to throw into your build, I don't think you can go wrong with Megaflare. Wings of Light, Megaflare, very, very powerful, and I'll show you why at the end of the video for a build showcase. Now, as far as the actual abilities on the icons are concerned, I kind of set this up to where you need 4 mastered and then only 2 upgraded, the ones for Bahamut. Again, tailor this to your playstyle. But what I found worked really well for me mid-game is this ridiculous combination here. I'm telling you, once I got these, I never take them off. Will the Wykes and Lightning Rod is just so good together. And Will the Wykes actually works extremely well with Megaflare, because if you cast Will the Wykes and then start to cast Megaflare through Wings of Light, even if you fail a precision dodge to level up your Megaflare, it's not going to stop you from casting it, and it's not going to drop it either. You're going to be able to just continue to raise that casting bar. And with Will of the Wykes, you can block up to 4 attacks. So if you cast Will of the Wykes and then Megaflare, it's going to be extremely easy to get this off. So it just yet another reason why Will of the Wykes is just an amazing ability. These combined do a ridiculous amount of stagger damage. So if you want to use this before or after a staggered phase, you can't go wrong. And then I still really liked Flames of Rebirth up to this point. If you wanted to, you could replace this with Ignition. I know a lot of people really like that skill. It obviously has a much better cooldown than Flames of Rebirth, but there's just so many ways that you can go about using this skill. You can use it before a stagger phase, because it actually does do a fair amount of stagger damage. You can wave clear with this, and you can open with this because it doesn't do a tremendous amount of damage, so it's a good way to go ahead and start building your stagger multiplier during a stagger phase. I just think this skill has a lot of utility, and it's still useful in mid-game, or at least it was for me. The other skill you're going to want to have mastered is Judgement Bolt, just because once you do reach a staggered phase, this thing just hits like an absolute truck. And this kind of has the same attributes that Flames of Rebirth does in terms of its stagger damage. While it's used primarily for its raw damage, it still does a good amount of stagger damage. So if you really need to get an enemy to 50% or even to start the staggered phase, by the time you cast this, because the cooldown isn't tremendously long, if you play your cards right during your staggered phase, you're probably going to be able to use this right at the end of your combo. But it just has a lot of uses, does a lot of damage, does good stagger damage, and it just fits in any build. Now, the skills that I like to use that aren't quote-unquote mastered for the build, because you only need to have them leveled up, the first one is Impulse. I was really disappointed in Bahamut's abilities when I first unlocked him. Aside from Gigaflare, of course, but Flare Breath and even Satellite were really lackluster. They were really underwhelming. I know you can cast Satellite and then cast Megaflare and just shoot a little bit of the satellites while you're casting Megaflare, but I just didn't find it nearly as useful as Will the Wykes, and I felt like it was overkill to equip both. But Impulse is probably one of the best stagger abilities in the game, just because of how much damage it does. You can pretty much cast this, and while you have to cast it again once the orbs have turned orange to maximize its damage, if you do that and you time it right, you can pretty much start a battle against a boss or a hunt or a really tough enemy and get them to 50% with just Impulse. It's ridiculous. This is a really, really good skill to use leading up to a stagger phase, because if you go ahead and cast Megaflare, get it to level 4, unleash it, and then use Impulse if their stagger bar is pretty close to being staggered, it's pretty much going to launch them into that stagger phase almost immediately, even without blowing up the orbs. It's the only con that I think that this ability has, is that to maximize its damage, you need to blow them up, which you have to do with the ability on your screen, right? So like, you can't just cast this and then switch to, you know, Titan or Garuda over here and then blow them up. You still have to blow them up while, you know, Bahamut is your main icon at the bottom right. That's the only con that I have about this skill. You don't always have to blow them up. It just really helps depending on where their stagger bar is, but I cannot recommend this ability enough. I think it's really, really good, and I'll show you why during the build showcase. But our last skill that we're going to go ahead and pick up here is going to be this ridiculous, over-the-top, Kamehameha, Shinku Hadouken of a skill in Gigaflare. This skill is amazing. It's pretty much the move that you want to use at the end of your stagger combo, or at least once you have reached your 1.5 times multiplier. Once you've hit that, unleash this for a colossal amount of damage. This move hits 60 times and can just absolutely shred health bars. The good thing about this is you can actually target multiple enemies, so if you really have to and you've lined them up, you can just completely obliterate a wave. But obviously I think its main use is for those stagger combos and just being able to just melt health bars. Couple this with Lightning Rod and it's disgusting. This is easily going to be one of the best abilities in the game, probably the second best ability in the game. But yeah, this skill is just disgusting. So I would go ahead and just, outside of Ifrit's, like Clive's main abilities, in the very center, I would probably just scrap everything and master these four outside of, you know, these, obviously. Leave these, but everything else, just scrap them, max these four, and then level these up. Outside of that, I don't think you're really going to need much else. Again, you can obviously switch these out for, you know, whatever fits your playstyle more. Like if you wanted to use Ignition here instead, I think that's totally fine. And again, something I forgot to touch up on when I was covering the pros and cons for Titanic Block is the fact that I like Raging Fists more. Because it actually does, unlike Titanic Block, it does actually freeze time once you've actually used it to block and counter an attack. It does way more damage, way more stagger damage, and it cuts the cooldown down by 50%. But you obviously can't use it back to back to back, but it's just an amazing skill. And whenever I do eventually take Titanic Block off, I will actually find a place for not Titanic Block, but I will actually find a place for Raging Fists in my build, just because I love that skill that much. I think Raging Fists is one of the coolest skills in the entire game. It is some JoJo shit. It is so ridiculous. Look at this. I mean, it's just amazing. And then, you know, you obviously get more hits if you end up smashing the button while you're just destroying enemies. I do not use this for anything other than its counter, because it's just so much easier to use this as opposed to like Heat Wave or something that's, you know, projectile based, because there's just so many physical abilities in the game that the enemies try to hit you with. Just amazing. I love Raging Fists. In fact, if you wanted to remove Flames of Rebirth and put Raging Fists on, I wouldn't even bat an eye. I love it that much. Couple them together, and good God, use this when it's on cooldown, and then Raging Fists when it's not, and just destroy an enemy. Oh, I love it so much. But alright guys, that's going to be it for the build and abilities. Again, max these four and then level these up and you're good to go. So let's go ahead and jump into the build showcase. Alright, what are we going to cast? What are we going to cast? Ooh! So you have to block multiples there. But it still works really well. Alright, let's go ahead and show off Impulse here. Wow, this thing is just decimating that frickin' stagger gauge. Look at that, now that they're orange. Boom! Disgusting. Did not mean to use that. I'll tell you what we will do. Cast this. And go ahead and cast this. And Will the Wykes is going to pretty much protect us here for any failed dodge while we summon Megaflare. And once I get it up there, I'm going to use Impulse because the Impulse is already off of cooldown. Go ahead and set out a Lightning Rod. Obviously, you can do even more damage by using Limit Break here, but while you have Megaflare going and all this extra shit, Impulse is already back up 347k. Look at it, he's almost staggered again. Ow. You can almost use this again. There it goes. Cast this. Cast this. I mean, that's a little more than I wanted right there, but I mean, just ridiculous. Okay. Once that stuff turns orange. Very nice. And then you can go into this. This. Reposition Lightning Rod. Which is just ridiculous. And then go into something like this. And Impulse has a ridiculously good cooldown where you can just go right back into it. And look, he's almost staggered again. Alright, so now that he is pretty low in terms of his stagger gauge, we're going to go ahead and cast this and cast this. Kind of show you what this combo looks like with Impulse. Being able to pretty much stagger them almost instantly when they're this low. Get this casted up here. Okay. Go ahead and use that. Throw this out. Alright. Throw out a Lightning Rod. Go ahead and do this. Throw out this. And you got Megaflare just raining down the entire time too, which is just disgusting. Go right back into this. Pretty nice amount of damage there. But alright guys, that's going to be it for the video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to stay up to date on all on content. I appreciate you coming out, and I'll catch you on the next one. Deuces.